Hello, I'm Radagast, and this is Cosmic Emporium on number 3. And of course, I'm always joined by Geo, and we're going to speak about taking charge of ourselves and political atheism and of course, other topics. But why don't you bring us up to date, Geo?
Hello, Rad. Yes, this has been quite another wonderful week. um, I promised last week that we would have a guest this week, and obviously things things have changed a lot for myself and experience. And what has really happened is that we're going to have to delay it for another week. And this is in part due to some technical reasons, and also scheduling with a particular person. Saying that, I'm still hopeful that others will take the invite and contact me or you in regards to doing this, and possibly maybe next week after this initiates and this first forum member joins us, maybe others will take heed and follow suit. I really hope so, because it's very important, I believe, to really progress down this avenue that we're going down, as far as bringing, moving from a platform into real life expression is the way to go. Now, saying that, next week we'll have a guest. I'll give you a 97%. I'll say that the person is a female, and the person is well liked, if not respected, and this person is going to tell a tale, and it should be very interesting. And I think we'll all be better off for it, when we have this. So anyway, that will be next week. Of course, a lot of people know that I had a little medical emergency this week, and I'll discuss that, right now and get it over with. But I think I should share some of this, because some of it's, I think, important about what we're going through, all of us. Whether I'm kind of a little unstable tonight, the last few days are starting to come back to me, and I think about it, and I'm a little shaky, and my sleep patterns have been off, but everything's good. Everything's good. I'm feeling okay. As you remember and recall, a couple weeks ago, I told you I wasn't feeling well. I was having trouble breathing, when I'd go outside, burning in my chest and everything, and that we discussed the chemtrails and the pollution that was in my region, circulating because of a high weather pattern. It was bringing on problems. Well, Monday I had to go for another separate procedure, a medical procedure, orthopedics procedure, and I felt a burning in my chest when I was outside. It's very cold and snowy up here, and it subsided. I went home, and come Wednesday morning, that was Monday, and come Wednesday morning, I'm up early like usual, like a monk. I'm up around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I'm doing my thing, and having my coffee and looking at the news and listening to the talking heads and all these things. And between 6 and 7, something came on that was just overpowering. I started having really heavy chest pain. Felt like someone was standing on my chest. I could stand up and walk around, and it wouldn't go away. It wouldn't subside. My breathing got worse, and I realized something was happening. Now, obviously, just to give reference, 24 years ago, I had triple bypass as a 42-year-old young person. I had cholesterol disease, and since that, I've had no heart problems. I control my cholesterol, and my breathing's been good. I don't smoke, never smoked. I used to smoke marijuana when I was younger, but my lungs are clear and everything, and I knew that this was important for me to keep my health. But this came on, and I knew that I was having a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I realized this, I had to take charge of it. I knew from my experiences being a paramedic and also my past experiences, everything came forth and how to deal with it. And the first thing came to mind is, I've got to calm down. And I sat down and I meditated for a few moments, and I opened myself up, and I asked, I knew that I was at one of those junctures in life, and we all have them, where you have to make a decision. Am I going to go forth, or is this it? And I came to realize that, okay, I got to deal with this now, because this is the time. And I'll tell you why that was the time later. But I opened myself up, and I said, okay. So the first thing that came to my mind was to call a friend. I could have called an ambulance, but the stress of sirens and paramedics coming to my home and all this stuff, I knew what that would do. It would only bring on more anxiety and cause more damage. So I called a friend, and my friend wasn't available at the moment. Took a message, and I sat back down and I said, okay, I only live several blocks from an emergency room, so there you go. But I knew that if I went to this particular hospital, it was not the right place for me. I knew, though, a few blocks over, there's another major medical center, Sacred Heart, which has a heart station. And I had done a stress test there last year, just a routine stress test that I passed. And I knew that all the support I would need would be there. And I was directed there. I felt it. I mean, it was just, you need to go there. And I knew if I called the ambulance, they would take me to the other place, Deaconess. But then the phone rang, and it was my friend, dear friend of mine, a younger friend, that really was very important in bringing me to Spokane and to where I live now and everything, and the whole situation that I'm in. So I spoke to this young man. His name is Scotty, and I told him my situation. And Scott's a very intelligent person. Has his own business. He's an ex-Marine, been in the Gulf War. He knows. He is the ultimate young man as far as I'm concerned. He's got all the attributes to being, an alpha. So he's very calm and smart. And I told him what was going on, and I asked, "Can you come over?" He had to drive a distance, but I said, "Can you come over and take me?" I said, "This is what's happening." And he said, "No question." So we put the phone down for a moment. I went back into a restful state, and he called me up a few minutes later, and he was concerned. He wanted to keep me conscious in case that came upon me. I passed out, because that's a real possibility in these things. Anyway, he came, picked me up, quietly took me over. We went to the emergency room. I got out of his vehicle, and he walked me to the door. I said, "This is as far as you need to go. Park the vehicle, and I'll go inside and handle this." I went in, reception to triage, and I told him what was happening. He immediately took me back and did vitals and some brief questions. They didn't put me through the forms and all this stuff. I knew all my information was already there in their system and everything. So they took, like I said, my vitals, and then they did a quick EKG and sent it back to a physician. And then within moments, they took me back into the core area of the ER and into a cardiac area. Put me in a singular room and began doing some more test blood work.
Get to the good news.
Okay. Well, I just want to build into this because this is very important how it happened. Within that hour, the first hour of this whole incident of me feeling the pain and going to the ER, I was already, let's say, halfway there. Immediately after speaking to the ER physician, they brought a cardiologist in, and he talked to me, and we had a meeting of minds, so to speak. And he says, okay, this is what we're going to do. I have an opening within 15 minutes to the cath laboratory, which is where they, they insert a catheter and can go up and look in
Right.
pictures of your heart. So within now an hour and 15 minutes, I'm going into the lab. And the next thing I know, I'm on a table. It's like an OR, and they're doing the procedure. And the cardiac surgeon told me, he says, the possibilities are this. And he says, it. He says, we can either go in and look, and you're either going to need open heart surgery, or we can do a stent, where they put these little devices in that clears the arteries. So the procedure went on, and the good news is I only needed one stent. And within another 15 minutes, now we're talking about an hour and 90 minutes total, I'm out.
Yeah.
And I'm heading to my room upstairs in a cardiac area.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt great. I had a little bit, there's no anesthesia or anything.
Right.
But I was feeling a little weird because I had a lot of nitroglycerin in me and other things that they were pumping in. So, but here I am sitting in my room now in a bed, and I'm going, what just happened? Mm-hmm. And this is all within 2 hours now. But I'm fine, and the episode's over with. And I'm, for all essential purposes, healed.
Your staying calm was so crucial to your smooth transition through that precarious period, I believe.
Yes. And I don't know what, because I'm usually, my mind's going, as you know, all the time. It's all over the place. And for me to, it's one reason why I like living alone, because
that was your guidance.
Yeah. Well, obviously someone was looking over me. I know that. And, but all this was really in place for it to happen this way. Now, within 24 hours after they did a heart echogram, where they take pictures of the heart and everything, see how it's pumping and functioning, I was released. So I was gone. I was only there in the hospital 24 hours. And this is the amusement part, is that I had such a wonderful experience. I met at least 50 people in this whole 24 hours that took care of me, various nursing staff and physicians and technicians, whatnot. And I got the bond with these people, but I was in such good spirit that we talked, and they were, I think it really made their time of what they go through, enhanced it, because there were so many people around me that were suffering. There was trauma going on in the ER while I was there. I won't go into it, but and even on the floor where I was at, there was a lot of chaos and stuff. But people kept gravitating to my room and coming in. It was almost like a celebration. It was just really bizarre. Mm-hmm. And the weather had changed. And that day we had a sunny day, and the day after, my recovery was beautiful and sunny, because we've been having tremendously poor weather here with snowstorms. We're having one right now, a major snowstorm, as I told you earlier, mm-hmm. and it's continuing through Monday. Now, timing is everything, and Wednesday was very important, because if I didn't do what I did, if I allowed this pain to maybe subside, and it did eventually subside by the time I got to the ER.
Right.
If I had waited another day or so, and we're into this snowstorm and situation where people wouldn't have been available to help me, it might have been, and I'm not talking about dying, I'm talking about just being much more ill.
Right.
Okay. So there you go. But after they released me, the interesting thing is I went downstairs to the main lobby, and it's a huge, huge place. I looked for a bank machine, because I just came with essentials. I did have my wallet with me. I needed to get home, and no one was available to take me home at that time of day. Everyone was busy in my life up here. So I said, well, I'll take a cab, you know. And the interesting thing is, you know, they didn't wheel me downstairs in a
Wheelchair.
wheelchair. They don't do that anymore.
Hmm.
If you're healed, you get the option. You know, do you want to go home? Okay. So the nurses walked me to the elevator, and we were talking and giggling and hugging each other and stuff. And they said bye, and I said bye, and I went downstairs. And I'm looking around for the machine. I find, well, my card wasn't taken by this particular private machine. So I go outside, and you know, there's cars around everything, and I walk down the Marquee and down to the main street, and there's a bus stop there. I could probably take a bus. I only live 5 blocks across the hill. All this is up on a hill incline, and I live even a little further up the hill. But I could walk sideways about crosswise about 4 blocks, and then up a very steep, brief hill to my home.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, I'm going to walk. Now the streets are, you know, we still got a lot of snow and ice everywhere, and it's a little dicey, but I walked, and I'm walking along, and I'm just like looking up at this beautiful clear sky, no chemtrails or anything. And I pinched myself, and I said, holy crap, what just happened?
Right.
And it was an affirmation of things that I'd been going through for the last 6 months, maybe even longer. But I remember the last 6 months that I didn't know what was going to happen personally with my health and everything, and my well-being. And I just got a big boost, so to speak, of vitamin B, you know, literally with this experience. And I made it home and got to my apartment. And I just couldn't believe it. And then, as I said, as this week has played out with the weather and conditionings, everything, there was no other time to do this. I wouldn't have survived probably the incident if it happened yesterday or today.
Yeah.
Meaning there would have been heart damage to my heart muscle, and I would have been much.
No question about it.
So anyway, that was it. There's a lot of spiritual stuff that I'm still deciphering. I'll talk about it maybe in the future. I don't want to get into speculative, you know, what I believe in and what was happening around me and the energies and everything. But it was good. It was all good. It was so positive. Like I said, the experience, the 24 hours after the first hour were almost like a gathering. It was just a lot of good talk. I met, made what seems to be is going to be a permanent friend, and my roommate that was up there, him and his wife, and I just can't be, you know, say any more than give the thanks that this was as painful as it was, and the onslaught. It was such a wonderful experience. It's going to take me a little while to, you know, figure it out, but I just wanted to share that. And I told you I'm not going to talk much more than that. I'm kind of scattered still, but I know you and I had discussed some things, and I would like to let you take over at this point. And,
well, now, you know, since we are developing a show, it's good for people to get to know you, and I think it's good that you shared this, you know, that moment of passage with them.
Yeah, it's something you just can't deny. Some people might care less. That's fine, but this can happen to any of us. Is why I wanted to talk about it.
Right.
That it's your behavior and the way you deal with it has a lot to do with how it's going to you know, come out. Try to stay positive, and you've even told me before, you know, that you know, we talked about meditation and stuff, you know, to be calm, because I don't meditate like most people. Even when I was in monastery as a monk, you know, my praying was I had to do it while I was working.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most people can kneel, you know, and they go into quiet areas. Now I would be running buffers, you know, cleaning things, setting up candles, you know, altars and stuff like that. I had to be working while I was meditating. It's the way I am. I got one of those minds that's always charming. But anyway.
I think a good way to kind of just start off is only because we're trying to be responsive and having people who speak out, join in a conversation. So there was after our Cosmic Emporium 2, our last one, there was a commenter, and certainly not an antagonist. But was wondering why I wasn't. I guess he hears some murmurings from me that I have a favorable outlook for President Trump. So he wants to know why I'm not all over DAPL, or the Dakota Access Pipeline Project. And I guess it's because I don't want. It's certainly one of the places where on the initial outlay of this idea of we're gonna go ahead with this. It's just like, that goes through my heart. I am a Gaian. I am a water is life kind of person. I think there's legitimate treaty things that the Native Americans and the Sioux tribe up there have that need. To me, if we're doing a new republic, and I believe that's part of what's going on here, that goes forward this time to be inclusive. Because the first republic was really kind of white European driven. This new republic is meant to be inclusive, and I really feel that what the Native Americans care about, and of course many of us who love the earth also care about, which is clean water, that our voices are heard. I'm encouraged because from what I know of, when he initiated that executive order, he began a 30-day investigation into it. The fact that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has his ear on the vaccine issue, or at least the things that are in vaccines, and looking at that with the CDC. I also know that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was up at the Dakota Access Pipeline in support of the Native Americans. So I know that this voice is in his camp. And so although I don't like the sound of the executive order and what seems very callous disregard for the earth and for the Native American rights, and I'm horrified by it as what appears to be the attitude, I think the 30-day review plan is going to show that there's a normal Trumpian kind of thing where at the outset things are very bellicose, and then the facts come in, and then things get modified. Kind of like, Trump believes torture works, but General Mattis doesn't think it works, so therefore it won't be U.S. policy. So I just really think that the way things first show up, and especially the way they're kind of taken out there. And so this to the commenter, I'm horrified at the prospects of what this could do. But I also look deeper into the camp that this is coming out of and how they've been behaving, and that there's initial motions, and they're meant to create reactions, because those reactions create data for them to feed back. And and to me, this is a time where one of the concepts I mentioned at the beginning of the program, the political atheism, to me, this is where we start this, somebody else called it NeoNationalism. And I like to think of what NeoNationalism means is that nations kind of almost reset their cultural identities and how they identify, but they're doing so in a globally networked world that they love. And I think this new neo-nationalism, like we see it happening in France and in some other places, and with Brexit, this isn't about people closing up their borders and retreating from the world. To me, this is almost like what I'm calling a national inventory of like, who are we as sovereign citizens? What are our borders? How do we manage it? I see a real, what I would call a national hygiene program occurring. That I think bodes well, but in this hygiene program, it's going to be clearing a lot of the crap out. And to me, this is where the group of people with good ideas, what I like to call the political atheists, where we don't have to show our party credentials by whether it's virtue signaling or some other kind of thing that you need to come out of your mouth to identify yourself, that you identify yourself with good ideas that actually are inclusive, because we're all talking about we're inclusive. Well, then what are our ideas that are inclusive, and show proper data streams from all concerned parties.
Yes, it's a reset, and that's plain and simple. I was thinking about, how back in the turn of the 19th to the 20th century, how with all the new technologies, the motors being created for public transportation, and of course Edison and Ford and all these things happening in the United States in particular. It was a time of excitement, but it was a time of great risk, because it was a bringing in of the genius of mind, but also the corporative backing of money. And that's really what set the pace for the 20th century in the United States, which brought a lot of innovation, a lot of great change. Now, I'm almost seeing that occurring again. I've always been a believer that, that we would have another day as a nation, because we are a nation of immigrants, and we are a nation of ideas, and also of money. And it's a reset for us to take a little bit of the government out, and a little bit of the religion out, and mix the pot up again, with the corporative. Now, obviously, I'm a little troubled with some of the things that, Trump says and does, but I don't see it as being dangerous like a lot of other people do. He is a man who obviously speaks his mind, and he gives his opinion freely, and he offends. But the bottom line is, he is surrounding himself for the most part with people that, at least in the key positions, as you said, defense.
He speaks like a New York City alpha male.
Yeah, and you would know that, being from New York. You understand that.
Yes.
I know that those characters, and they're real, but you should never underestimate them, or also condemn them, because they are what they are. And but their intent is the most important thing. I do believe Donald's intent is good. I do see him as as I've said before, a catalyst. But I think that he wants to succeed, most of all, and he realizes that in order to succeed, he's got to listen to other people, and he's got to refrain once in a while. But it's going to be like this. This is the way it's going to be. It's not going to change. So let's let it happen, because we got to start anew. I'm a little relieved by the federal judges' callback, the immigration thing, and it was bound to happen. And of course, this is going to be tied up in the courts for probably the next couple of years, but that's okay, because we do need to re-examine the immigration situation. And but people shouldn't get so scared. That what I was fascinated with is the reaction of the world. That I've come to believe now that the world sees America and the United States as theirs. And I kind of go along with that, because I don't see us as being just a nation unto itself. I think that so much has happened.
Nor does the nation. You can feel it. You don't hear it in the words. Nobody wants to be isolated. This is about hygiene. This is not about isolation. This is, this is the this is the, I don't know, the skeptical media,
Yes.
painting everything in these most dire of terms. And I mean, and to me, what makes them suspect is they really sound like mouthpieces for the globalist new world order.
Yeah.
And all of this sovereignty that is being recreated, is something that's a threat to everything they've built, which has been to dissolve even the concept of sovereignty. And to me, it's the concept of sovereignty that is the real spirit in what we're seeing going on worldwide. And it is counter to the spirit of globalism.
Yes.
So, so they are each other's demon.
Yes. Putting the globalization thing aside, and those that want to put it forth, I have no problems with us having a free commerce and movement in the world. But I do believe, there should be borders, and I do, at least at this
That's
point.
called hygiene. All
Yeah.
cells have borders.
Yes.
I mean, I'm always looking at this from the most holistic aspect, and holistic for me means to look at how the human body,
Right.
which has a sterile inside, and how it manages itself because the body is not warlike. It has a response, but it's not a warlike environment.
And saying that, getting back to, but I see the United States as being very conducive to what is going to happen. I mean, we look at China, and obviously China's economy and India's economy is coming up, but things are very important in this country to stabilize what happens in America is very important to the world, and a lot of people look to this country. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that because we are a nation of immigrants, at least the way we've put forth ourselves to be, people attach themselves to the ideas of it, because when people come to this country, they look around, they see everybody, all types, and they're interacting, and there's, even though regionally there could be pockets of this and pockets of that, we are open to other types and lifestyles and religions and everything, and I'd like to keep it that way. But I think they see it that way, and when they saw this immigration thing come up, they got a little scared and say, "Wait a minute, you're not going to close off America to us." And I can understand that. It's sort of like when someone says you can't come, go somewhere. Well, why can't I? But I'd like to keep America accessible. I understand the need for better, when I say regulations, but I want to keep it open to those that really want to be here, because that is
the open internet is what prevents ISIL it from being isolationist.
Yeah.
And nobody's calling for a closed internet. Again, this is nothing more than good boundary management, and it's the nation taking stock of itself again, of who are we. To me, the globalist entertainment industry has fractured people and created a lot of little subgroups. So there's not really a collective will. We don't know who we are, who really we are. We're chasing the next buzz, the next excitement. That is not good preparation for a political will that will take a little input from us all, so we can all because we all really actually care about each other, and we can put that care into practice by how we treat each other, by acknowledging each other, and creating a civil society that functions well for all well-intentioned citizens.
You spoke to me earlier about some of this instigation and some of this participation.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you speak of that? I found that very important to this current mood that's going on.
Well, I see everything in so much in mystic terms. Like even when you bring up China, I get like a psychological profile of the people, their leaders, and how they see the world a little bit. Uh-huh. By understanding them on that psychology. And what was the topic you were brought up?
Well, the globalization of the.
Oh yes, no, the
retreat.
Yeah. I think one of the most important words. In many ways, this is a conspiracy word. If you mention that George Soros is the source of a lot of what's wrong in the world through multi-tentacled kind of organizations that fund, that from their source they go out to another source that funds another source, so that when you get to the activity locally, it's a few sources removed.
Right.
But all of its funding, basically, other than maybe whatever puny local donations come in, all of its funding is coming from a parent. And in most of these cases of where the protesting is done as a profession. Okay, there's grassroots, and then there's astroturfing. And astroturfing is when you bring some professionals in, mm-hmm. and so there's clear indications. I mean, just even from some of the, I don't consider myself investigative, but I listen to into other people who are investigative, and there's all these ties that all of these people wearing masks and showing up at where or these basically organic outbursts of outrage.
Yeah, like Berkeley.
Yeah, but where they get commandeered by what to me are paid subversives.
It's almost reflective of the SDS back in the 70s.
Yes. Oh, yes. And something. It's the same. To me, it's what I'm going to call the same kind of communist route. And I mean communist in form of a nation busting thing, that the communists who created the Bolshevik revolution were not native Russians for the most part. And the impetus of that, they were a foreign installation. And this is the same energy. This is a foreign installation into the psyche of Americana, let's call it.
Yeah. And that's very true of the communist influence of the change, because when they brought Lenin in from Germany in a sealed boxcar after the revolution started, all these people they weren't Russian. They, at least for the most, all the leaders weren't.
As a native New Yorker, some of them were from my area.
They were from New York. That's interesting, but that's true. That's true. I didn't know they were basically New Yorkers, but I knew they were American. Yeah, it was orchestrated quite well too. But of course, they got away with it back then because there was no media and there was no internet.
And in many ways, much of the media was sympathetic to them anyway. Already.
Yeah, the country.
The people who run the media are part of this.
The press back then even.
Are part of this giant octopus of small, that is controlled by a small group. The globalists.
Yes, and I never used to like that term, but I'm starting to be more accepting of it, because I do see that there is a money. A cabal, as they call it, and getting into that other aspect of the pedophilia.
The globalists are anti-nature, and that's one of the reasons why they have so little disregard for. They have so much disregard for humans, because we're the fruit of nature's product. So they hate us the most.
Where do you see this going in the sense of the struggle between the cabal and the new surge of energy that I see happening in this country? Another interesting thing is the quiet, and I really have to wonder. I'm almost like this silent majority now in the country, where I just want to see things play out. I'm not taking sides, but I'm quiet about it. I'm not. I see mistakes being made here, and I also see outlandish statements being made there, and I'm talking about the media and administration and Capitol Hill and wherever, and in other nations. Everyone's going through this change right now. It's not just in the United States. I mean, if you really look closely, in Korea, in Philippines, in Europe, in France and Germany, and in Britain, all these nations, everyone's going through this change that you spoke of earlier, and it's a reset. So we have to allow it. We have to allow it to happen.
This is the whole. To me, what we're feeling is the spread of the Holy Spirit, or the wholesome spirit. And I mean, to me, this is a movement by the divine that's happening. And that's why when people are in tune with what this movement is, they can see everybody else who's in tune. They can hear it in the language.
Yes.
And it is a worldwide phenomenon. And it's just, in many ways, it is the spirit of the earth. It's the spirit of Gaia. I mean, even if we want to go into your own references into classic Christianity, the Holy Spirit is often considered the divine aspect.
Right.
And so for me, that is the spirit that's moving, and it's the spirit of the earth, or Gaia, or Sophia, and it is the true will of God, but it's this is the spirit that's moving it. And
others can also maybe look at it, especially those coming from the forum communities, as the ground crew of the awakening, because of what has been occurring over the last decade on the internet, with information being traded and shared. And we, even if you don't subscribe to new paradigm books, and the messages that are embedded into them, it was said and told that it would only take a small percentage of those to believe in this and to come forth and present this, that it would cause this change. I have a feeling there's a connection there as well, but that is divine in my mind, because it is a resurgence, the Renaissance, as the word you've been using. I like.
Yes, actually, it's I'm putting together this thing of art and music and some dance and some spoken word, and because I've been working with Butch Robbins, who's a famous banjo player, who had been in bluegrass. Although his own music, although still is a roots music, he's just an amazing musician who I've been playing with now for about a year. And so kind of spearheading with him with this kind of sound of the mountains that I'm trying to work on, that locally with an Appalachian flavor. But to me, it's kind of a combination of hippies meet the hillbillies. And because there's a spirit that's rising. It's not unsimilar to the 60s, but the 60s was waylaid by, I feel, too much drug use personally.
Yes, and also CIA influences.
Yes, well, I think the drugs were one of the strongest influences the CIA brought.
Yeah.
Because it diffused everything. It took the focus away.
Yeah, you're right about that.
And so in many ways, so I'm seeing something where, people like me, the part of the original hippie movement, and there's still a lot of people like that around here. They celebrate music and dance, and Appalachian culture is also celebration of music and dance.
Right.
And so and both of them are kind of like back to the landers, can do, work with your hands kind of people. And it's an interesting mix, and I'm trying to create a kind of place for all of this energy, and a lot of it is anti-Trump energy.
Yes.
But I want everybody to know exactly what it is, because I see Trump as an opening. I see the path being cleared for him to be able to turn to the public, who he spoke of in his inauguration address, and say, okay, I cleared the way for you guys. Now you got to bring it. And so I'm trying to create something that even if you're anti-Trumpian, what do we want to bring?
It can fill the vacuum. Yes.
What do we want to bring?
We all have to bring something that fill that vacuum. We have to rise to the occasion, to the windows being opening. You're exactly right on with that. And
we kind of call ourselves the Republic of Floyd. So it's kind of like the Republic of Floyd social renaissance.
I didn't hear that term before. That's interesting. Republic of Floyd.
Republic of Floyd social renaissance, I'm probably going to call it.
I like that. No, that's an excellent idea, and I know that's what you want to do locally and keep yourself connected to the ground there. You live in such a beautiful part of the country. I like to talk about the Northwest all the time, but I'm very familiar with that part of Virginia. I used to go down to Blacksburg.
We're pretty darn close to Kentucky.
God's country.
And North Carolina, Asheville. Asheville's not that far away.
Yes. If anybody, and that's another thing for those of are listening, that you have to speak that in the future there's possibilities of gatherings that maybe others might be interested in attending. So you have to keep us in tune to that.
Absolutely.
because I mean, it's really not that far when I think about distances out west, but on east, the East Coast and Midwest, you can get to that location pretty easily.
Why? Somebody's supposed to lend me a video camera, and that's something I think I can get at least, use with certain amount of command. And I would like to, as some of these things go off, and we're planning them in the very coming, really as soon as possible, actually. Yeah. And if I can just capture some of this on video and upload it to YouTube and just show people what the beginnings of movement look like. Because right now there's no political agenda. This is about just coming together, celebrating this spirit that we all feel. Because that's the whole thing, is I want to acknowledge that we're all feeling this very similar movement in our hearts and in our spirits, and recognize that this is a worldwide thing, and realizes that it seems to be calling us into a dialogue.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be liberal. It doesn't have to be conservative.
Political atheists. Let's drop. Really, I have said it for a long time. I consider political parties to be a form of schizophrenia.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm not saying the parties are going to go away right away, but we, the people, can think of what are the good ideas that serve us, the people, not we, the Democrats, we, the Republicans.
Right.
I mean, that's a fake divide line. There's more common. So we need to focus on the common areas that really are more a part of our day-to-day life than the trigger areas.
Yeah. As countrymen and women. That's the most important thing, and that can be carried over into other nations, other parts of the world as well.
Well, that's what Trump was talking about, was being an example. In other words, like cleaning up our own acts so we know who we are, becoming who we are, and then because we are, although we might be quote unquote dominant white culture, man, the white people have embraced those who have come into the culture and found it compatible in a way that they're actually just able to intermix. I know the average person just I love diversity, but again, there's an orderly fashion to diversity that works in a holistic way and not an infectious way. The body has its own ways of governing itself, and it's those governors that have to be functioning properly, or you'll have ill health.
Right. When it comes to the white populace, and it's getting older, but also when, what I pick up from most people, and especially up here in the Northwest, where it is conservative, but what I feel from people, it's not about liberal and conservative. It's about how you feel about this country, what your morals are. Family is very important up here. I know it's important where you're at as well, but family doesn't necessarily have to be the traditional way we see it. It's just, living good lives, with good intent. I know this all sounds corny to some people, but it is getting back to these original concepts. And what most Americans appreciate is, especially because we have a lot of influx of immigrants in the state of Washington, there, even in the city where I'm living, and I interact with a lot of these types. Matter of fact, I was on a bus with a few of them the other day, and they're very polite. When they let me get on first, these were younger people. They had reverence for older people, which I really appreciate, because very seldom anyone acknowledges older people anymore.
Well, that's what this show is about.
Yes, we are older people. But you see what I'm saying. But they're embracing this country because there's something about the spirit here that they love. So if they embrace that, I don't believe anybody has any problems with immigration. It's what keeps us going. It's surely not going to be the white population. We're going to be a majority of probably Hispanics in the next 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine, because when I got out west, I didn't realize how many of that persuasion were here, intermingled, just like, in the pockets of back east with the Italians and Irish and whatever. It's what it is.
but it's the spirit of the land and wanting to move forward. And that's what's amazing about Trump, is that you can look around and I see persuasions, all ethnic persuasions, rooting for him.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, if you told me 10 years ago and he was going to be president, and I would say, nah, not because who he is, but also because what he represents. But, you know, and meaning back then, you know, a New Yorker, upstart New Yorker, you know, it just didn't make sense to me.
He, like I said, he's using almost the equivalent of dog whistles in the language that he uses. And they're kind of geared to different dogs. But regardless of color or religion or anything, there's a message that is in his words that they are hearing.
Yeah, I'm hearing him.
I really believe this is that spirit of God moving across the planet that I feel is motivating people to hear certain things from him, because I believe that spirit is blowing through him. He has plenty of countervailing winds in his vicinity, but I think that this is where his alpha maleness will prevail. That I think he's possessed of this superior spirit, and I think his alpha ego is actually going to preserve this intact without too much degradation from what I consider to be polluting forces that are in some of his circle.
Yeah, I would hope that as time continues, that people not feel so threatened, especially the feminine, because I don't, you know, he is what he is. Ladies, you don't have to marry him. You don't have to do anything with him. Let him do what he's doing. I don't think he's a threat to feminine rights.
There are plenty of women who don't feel threatened by him, and they are another representation of feminine. And it can't be denied. People, you know, that's how they feel about it. So it's not about right or wrong, but it's not, neither side can own the argument.
Right. And we're not going backwards. I don't see that happening. It's just, there's too much known and too much out there and available in information and resources. We're not going backwards, at least in that sense. So I think people need just to calm down and let it happen.
I can think of a few nations that might be more concerned about being grabbed by their short hairs than any women out there.
You know, we've been in such a state in this country for, I'd say, since the 90s. And it's been a slow decline in growth as well as attitude, you know, behavior and everything. And we've taken this position, well, it's our time to go down. Well, go down. I don't know what that's supposed to really mean. Decline, the end of a civilization. But if we are where we are, we shouldn't be like that. It's a time of rebirth, like you said.
It's time to close down on the sprawl. We're sprawled all over the place, and it's unnecessary, and it's part of a mindset that isn't healthy to begin with. Yeah. Where our bases all over the world are like a form of metastasization. I mean, we're more like a tumor that has some of our little, cultures, sprayed all over the world. It's not a healthy thing.
You're talking about the military.
The military bases, yeah. I mean,
yes.
So for me, there's a lot of sprawl, I'll call it, and that in itself can allow America to shrink without hurting America.
Yes. I'm all for.
Maybe American interests, and that's a careful word when American interests are being used as opposed to Americans, because a lot of politicians use them like they're interchangeable. They're not.
Right.
They don't mean the same thing.
Yeah. The military obviously has been used as an instrument by a small faction of this republic, or whatever you want to call it, corporation. They don't represent the American people's interest, nor their will, so to speak, and we need to bring that back in. And I don't know if that means major, closings, but we have so many of these things scattered throughout the world. It needs to be reined in. The use of force of warring has got to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that there's tension, in the Ukraine, and there's tension in South China Sea and in North Korea, and everyone's gearing up for something or this or that. But I think the best thing for us to do as a nation is pull back our military. And if things are going to happen between other nations, we can't intervene all the time.
Right.
It's for them to resolve, and I think we have to give them respect in the sense that they can handle their own information. And I excluded the Iranian thing, which right now is very hot, because of the ballistic missile testing that's just happened. But I think another place where we need to withdraw in the sense of trying to control is the Middle East. And we've already started that, obviously, and I hope Trump continues that way. Allow the parties involved. There's enough weapons there for them to do whatever they need to do, but there's also enough goodwill and good intent by those there that can offset this if there's no outside influences to partake. And I mean Russia as well as China as well as the United States. We need to be out of there. There's nothing wrong with us buying their products or them selling their products to us. It's but it's for them to resolve their cultural and religious issues.
Yeah.
We have no right to be there.
No.
And I'm hoping that if anything, that Trump will do that. That no matter how disenfranchised people feel about our government right now, if one of the major things that Trump brings to this table is pulling us out of these disputes and ongoing warmongering behaviors, that in itself is a major reset.
We already seem to, from what I can tell, I mean, they're keeping it real quiet, but there seems to be some pretty decent coordination now between the United States and the Russians with regard to who gets bombed in Syria.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. So I'm gonna, like I said, we said we would give them 100 days at least,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to continue that. I still will post things that I find interesting and relevant, but that doesn't necessarily mean I don't want people to think that I'm anti-Trump, and I don't want people to think I'm anti, about other interests, the liberal interests. I like you said, I'm becoming an atheist to all this because
I don't see conservative or liberal interests. I mean, let's discuss the things that affect us all. I mean, like, let's take a topic like abortion. I'll just kick in on a minute. I cannot get past the woman's right to make a decision about her body. I think it's one that should hopefully be made with her family involved. I mean, I think the seriousness of life, and the gift that it can be when brought to term, is nothing to be ignored. And I think that just the very fact of getting pregnant has to be a conversation that, to me, in a new thing where women have women's groups, where we start going back to some tradition where when women entered into puberty, there's at least somebody in their group that are kind of like elders that'll mentor them through this process and inculcate in them how pregnancy has to be a choice.
Yes.
It isn't some kind of haphazard thing. And whatever these women impart to each other, how to only be pregnant when you choose to be pregnant, whatever those methods are, I think should be between them. And should a pregnancy occur, I mean, I just really feel that, hey, if you've missed a period and you want your period, get it tended to now. This is not something to wait on. I do have a certain concept of viability. So my whole thing is I would like, where a woman's culture was, if you miss your period and you're not want to be pregnant, let's make sure that you get your next period.
Yeah.
We're this way here. It's about bringing a period on.
Okay. Which, brings the institution of the Planned Parenting.
Oh yeah, real Planned Parenthood, where, even the emphasis on families. We know what a nuclear family is. So we have that as something, as part of the palette to choose from in lifestyles. But I think if we look back historically, we're going to see that there's a lot more support in families that figure it out. And that even in the local power structures of town or whatever, a family that has some coherence is a greater psychic presence in how things go.
Yes.
So there, to me, there's a lot to be learned from the past. It isn't to say that this is the only way to go, but realize when you go out on your own, it's almost upon you to build new networks since you're leaving a network. But the whole, this whole thing of this constant isolation of more meaningful interactions with other humans is something that has made us fragile to resist this kind of globalist, anti-human, anti-life movement against us.
Yeah. Locally and statewide here, the governor, ISIL, was here in town this past week, and he was at Planned Parenthood Center here in Spokane. And there's this concern, about defunding some of this, the money towards abortion, to those who can't afford the services. And he emphasized, along with a large group of these administrators and mostly women, obviously, that were there, and they were telling the local populace that we're going to still be here. We're going to be here to give you the guidance and direction you need, and we're not going to let the national agenda or whatever that could be, from the administration, influence what's happening locally, in which signaled that they are going to stay in place no matter where they get their funds from, to give the support to, especially to women who don't have the ways and means to get the educations and the information that's needed for them to make those choices you're speaking of, which makes me feel good, because I think this is the only way it's going to happen. It's got to be local or state. The rest of it nationally, I don't think the government should be involved with appropriating money to, for whatever purposes. It's got to be decided locally by the people that live there, and what they're religious and what they're political, if you want to use that word, political, but you know what I mean, what their belief systems are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the way to do it. I mean, it's got to go back to that. There's too much is being dictated by Congress, and in some cases even the courts. I think.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's really where Trump might be coming from with some of this stuff, and going after some of these national programs, because I do believe that it has been hijacked by a higher globalization cabal, in the sense of what they're trying to achieve, through these fundings. There is money available in the system to afford whatever is needed, but trying to make a decision morally what's right and what's wrong is not really where it's at. What needs to be addressed is the proper attention towards education and the availability of services that will help every individual woman make the right decisions in their lives. It's very interesting that my roommate, while I was in hospital, is a conservative, and we agreed on everything as we're speaking, what you and I are speaking of. But the only thing he disagreed was, I think any man in his right mind would say, I don't believe in abortion, and and rightfully so, because it's not us doing
It's
it.
a poorly framed way to me to query somebody. Do you believe in abortion?
That's right. Yes.
You know what I mean? It's just like, it's like, it kind of traps you. It's like, have you stopped beating your wife? To me, you know, the very personal aspect of the woman who might find herself pregnant and the family that is associated or families associated with the pregnant woman are, to me, that's where the onus of this decision lies.
Yes, I totally agree.
I mean, this is way too private a matter. And like, I just, you know, culturally, I'm not into laws. I'm into like just culturally where anybody, if you find out that you've missed your period and you do not want to be pregnant, get yourself, I mean, you know, there's a way of bringing periods on. Go get, you know, I mean, just, if you don't want to be pregnant, there's no other questions that need to be asked. You missed your period, you want your period. End of story. And it doesn't need to be a lot of procedure, doesn't need to be funds allocated. You know, I mean, I just think that, you know, culturally, I think we should be about responsible parenting. And that means that that means you do not get pregnant until you're ready to be pregnant. This to me is what we need as cultural, not laws. Are ways, because I don't like laws, I like ways. And everybody understands that to not perform that way is to be irresponsible. In many ways, it's almost like women get pregnant when they want to. Only children get pregnant when they're not ready. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter what age you are. You know, we kind of create this whole thing about responsibility to our collective. And part of that is not this, that there's at least a little bit of a, you better perform now. I mean, if you bring one of these people up that, you know, that probably may not have performed well in society or whatever, you know, like the onus, like when these people produce children from multiple fathers, it's like, you know what, prove us wrong. I'm not saying you can't, but please prove us wrong. It's a great way to create, to you know, blast away any veneer of people who say that careful management might be too close to eugenics. To me, eugenics is an idea that's imposed upon one group of uppers upon lowers. To me, to talk about the responsibility of how we keep our species strong going forward, to me, that's not really eugenics. That's just, again, almost like species hygiene as a conversation that everybody gets into.
Yes, and here we are, you know, two older white men talking about it, but I would really, really invite any female listeners out there, especially those who have access to this information, you know, what we're talking about, to join in and please contact us if they want to discuss this and give their perspectives, because I really would love to hear it, and I think others would too. Yeah. I don't feel totally, you know, qualified in addressing this without having a feminine voice, you know, being, you know, in the room and giving opinion as well. But I would love to continue this conversation in another show.
Yes, because we're about an hour now.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can leave it there, but there's a lot of potential with this conversation. I know there's individuals out there that have a lot to say and are very, you know, astute in this area. So I would invite them, you know, please come on.
I mean, actually, my biggest message is about sovereignty and as little law as we can get away with. Because this is really a discussion about should abortion be outlawed or whatever. I'm not into laws. I'm into cultivating a culture that is pro-life in its culture. Yeah, things will happen. We're not going to be perfect, but cultivating a pro-life, and that ties into bringing families about, and you know what that looks like. I mean, really thinking 7 generations ahead, as the Native Americans have often counseled.
That's a wonderful clarification. I'm glad you said that. I guess, well, you know, we'll leave it at that. But that's excellent. So let's see what happens next week. I'm like I said, I have my fingers crossed, but I believe we will have a guest who will bring in a little bit, you know, takes down another path. And I know this person has a lot of good information to expand upon. So I'm hoping for that, and we can address it and have a discussion with her. And like I said, I hope this will intrigue some others to join us, or incite some others to join us on some on some of these topics. But like I said, I'm still a little shaken from this week, but I'll be okay.
Good show, brother.
Yeah, it was all right. It's been an interesting week, and I'm excited about the future, in the sense of spring coming and or fall, wherever you live, and if you live down below. But things are changing fast again, and summer will be gone and winter will be gone, and life goes on, and we're in a brand new age now.
Yes. Well, okay. Well, so this is Cosmic Emporium number 3. That's Geo's personal update and geopolitics. And I'd just like to encourage anybody, if you've liked the video, please give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to keep up with us, as right now we're going to be something weekly, probably on Saturday nights. The weekends are a dull news period, so it's a good time to put something out there. And yeah, so if you like this and want to be notified, please subscribe. And comments are welcome. And as I said, one of the ones about DAPL was it was a commenter on below in the YouTube comments that said, "Why don't you go after this a little bit?" He actually wanted me to go after it big time, but it's to me, it's too much. There's data coming in.
And invite that person to come on and join us, and they can take us down that pathway.
I will do that.
That's the way I see it. I mean,
I didn't mention their name only because I hadn't cleared it with them that would be okay. So
right. No, but I'm saying, here's an open invite to that person. Please join us, and I'd be glad to hear whatever they have to say and expand upon it. So let's leave it at that.
Okay. Well, I'm saying good night to everybody. Geo, maybe you want to?
Yes. Good night, everyone.
All right.
Great Northwest White. We'll see you next week.
And from the Republic of Floyd, see you next time.
Bye-bye.